Okay, hello everyone. Today is Monday, December 5th, 2022. This is a meeting of the SIG Network Policy API subgroup to SIG Network. This is a CNCF certified meeting, so please be nice to each other, try to limit the curse words, and yeah, let's have a good meeting today. So just kind of hopping in, something we hadn't done in a long time was issue triage. We used to do it all the time, but then issues kind of slowed down. So all that the issue triage is basically, I have the link in the document too, if I'm ever not here, is query Kubernetes issues with the label network policy, basically. Thankfully, there weren't any new ones, so that's good. Nothing really for us to tackle yet. It was kind of interesting though to see some old ones that have been open for like a long time. And I thought, maybe we could talk a little bit about it. I know Raul is working on FQDN policies, and I don't think he's here today. But this one kind of had some good thoughts around that. So I poked him in the agenda. Hopefully he sees it. If you're watching this recording, Raul, go give it a look. But yeah, if I'm ever not here or someone else is running the meeting, feel free to run through these. It's nice for us as a subgroup to like try to help out SIGNet however we can if there's like new issues and stuff. Cool. Yes, that was one thing I just wanted to add on.
Is that like something that's come up multiple times, and then like is it just a continuous, is it a debate, or is it actually something we're going to do, or is it kind of, I'll read through the issue, I guess.
So that issue actually isn't super, it's a good question, Ryan. So that issue isn't super current. The most up-to-date thing with like layer 7 policies, more narrowed down really to FQDN policies, is something that Rahul from Google has been working on for a while. And the current status of that work is here. So you can go give that a read.
Rahul joined.
Oh, hey, Rahul. Can you hear us? You might have already seen this too. Oh, we can't hear you. Well, hopefully he can hear me. I think he'll hop on. I was just saying, Rahul, I found a really old issue that had some discussion on FQDN from Thomas Graf all the way back in 2018. So 4 years ago. Just wanted to make sure you had seen it. What else? So I need to update this query to include any issues open against the network policy API repo, which I will do. Let me add a note to do that. Cool. On the network policy API repo, someone opened an issue saying there are some broken links on the website. I wasn't able to reproduce it. So if someone else, even during this meeting, could just click through these links and make sure they work for them as well. And if so, we can close it.
See that one on there. That's for the registry thing. The fourth one.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I put this at the end of the agenda, but we can talk about it right now. I'm fine with that. So for folks who don't know, Cyclonus is like a network policy conformance tool and engine that Matt Fenwick had written a long time ago when they redid the upstream network policy test. And we actually ported it to live in our upstream repo. And our rough idea of what to do with it is to like extend it for admin network policy and make it more of just like a generic tool for conformance testing for both network policy and admin network policy, and also maybe a tool to help folks analyze what policies are doing in their cluster. So with that, we got the core porting done into our new repo, but Matt, who obviously made Cyclonus, has opened up an issue saying like, what's next for that tool, right? We haven't really talked about it here a lot. And thankfully, Brian has offered to kind of help out with this. So this is the issue tracking the work. I think the first question from you was kind of trying to decide where any items should live for this. And it's a good question.
I know Kate's is going through like a change with the registry too, right? Like I thought I saw some issues a couple weeks ago on that. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it depends on what we want to release and if we want to start like releasing official versions for Cyclonus like Matt was doing. If we're doing, if we're releasing just a container image, then this obviously matters more in my opinion. But if we're trying to actually release like Cyclonus binaries, it becomes even more complicated. For the container image, if it was just me, I'd say let's release images to get the GitHub container registry, but I don't know if folks are using that in Kubernetes SIGs. Looks like they are.
Few of them.
So maybe we should start there.
At least those top 4 are getting decent downloads.
Yeah, a ton of downloads actually, which is interesting.
Is it all
So
container images, or do you see any binaries?
These are just container images.
Well,
actually, I could be wrong. Yeah, these are just container images. So get the GitHub container registry is like built into GitHub now, and it's really nice because it's pretty easy to like automate builds and actions and then push here, which is cool. So for container images, this would be a great tool. It seems like folks are using it in Kubernetes SIGs. That was kind of my one reservation. So I'm fine with using that. As for like binaries and stuff, then I don't really know how it would work. We have to figure out releases in this project in general, because now we have a tool that we're going to have to release, which is going to be independent of like an API release sort of schedule, right? So we can do. Yeah,
I looked at Cyclonus before and we used it, but it's again multi-networking, and sort of, are we gonna, by walking the Cyclonus way, are we then sort of taking on upon us to do what happens with multi-networking, update Cyclonus? We don't sort of even know if it's suitable for it. I hope it is. It should be, because it's to a large extent works on the specs, right, and not addresses. I mean, they look more on the templates and so on. But that's something I think we need to think about.
Yeah, I think the moment we have a API object that we're hosting here, or that Kubernetes is hosting around policy in the multi-network scenario, it'll become a priority. But it definitely, I think like the same thing will apply.
Yeah, but personally, I don't think we have a better place to start from. That's my
right. That's where I was too. Right, like we talked a lot about tooling for admin network policy, and there wasn't really anything out there. And Matt had already kind of started this project, and it's great. So we figured we'd take it over. But just recycling a little bit, Brian, does that answer your question?
I think it does. Here? If you're a CNI maintainer and you're going to run performance tests and you depend on Cyclonus to do that, are they going to expect those images to exist in the K8s registry? Is that what they're getting? Anything else that they might be doing? Like, that was my only concern there, was, are we doing something weird by putting it in GHCR for, say, a CNI person that wants to run conformance?
I think for getting it bootstrapped, it's totally fine, because we can always once we get our release process figured out for Cyclonus, change to releasing in registry.k8s.io. It's just harder to go the other way, right? So I figure let's start there, and then move forward. And I would start with just releasing container images, and maybe just container images that are based on main. And then we can move towards like an actual release system if needed, right? Like right now, everything's still new and fresh. So
yeah, unless anybody complains about not having binaries, maybe we don't need to publish them.
We'll it's a thought. I think we totally can with GitHub, if we need to, with GitHub releases. I've just never played with using GitHub releases for like I wonder if we can do multiple releases for a single repo. I'm sure we can.
If it is just a Go program, just use some GitHub actions and go release it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Probably it's faster. Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. And then there's a bunch of other stuff here too. Brian, I don't know if you want to tackle all this, or do you want to like split it up into smaller issues for people to take on? What do you feel like?
Definitely
It's a
split
lot of
it up.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me like we can split up these main 3 goals into their own issues.
Yeah. Some of them are
and
good first issues too.
Yeah, 100%. So I'd like to continue getting folks involved. So anything that's a good first issue would be great.
Will this be run as a completely separate project with its own meetings, or you try to use part of this meeting to coordinate things, or?
I think we can use this meeting because it is a, policy tool, right? And this meeting is kind of all around policy. So I don't think we need another one.
Good.
What else? Cool. Yeah, so for anyone watching, and sorry, what's going on, Yang?
Hi, Andrew. Yeah, I was just trying to ask a quick, maybe dumb question on what's the difference between the engine and conformance suite for AMP and AMP listed here. So like what do you have in mind, Matt, for those goals?
Well, Matt's not here, but I don't think.
Oh, okay.
But Brian, do you have any input on that?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I was just saying that because right here it listed a bunch of goals, right? So one of them says engine, and we have feature for AMP and BAMP here, and the other is the conformance suite. I'm just trying to understand, what's for each of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt and I did an Entrea live the other week, and we started talking about how to get Cyclonus to support AMP, and basically what it came down to was we need to first extend the Cyclonus engine to be able to support and work with AMP and BAMP, and then once we have that support built in, we can start writing conformance suite tests into Cyclonus as base policy tests.
Okay, sounds good. Now I get it. So I probably needed a refresher on Cyclonus because I haven't looked into that for a while. So
we just recorded a refresher. So it's in the Google Doc. I just threw it on there for you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But a quick question is, for the normal Kubernetes network policy right now, so the Cyclonus work for the conformance suite, does it work as you bring up a bunch of namespaces and pods, and you run tests through them, and is that like a three namespace, 3 pods in each, that kind of thing, or it's usually on demand namespaces, pods for each specific test case?
I think I'm still not a Cyclonus master, so I might be wrong, but I think you can write your own set of network policies and then use Cyclonus to run conformance against those after you've applied them into the environment, or you can use Cyclonus to run against a vanilla cluster with any CNI and verify vanilla network policies are running and meeting conformance within that environment. But I think you can also write your own policies and simulate them and then get back like a truth table result based on how that went. Like to your point, like if you have 3 namespaces, put a policy in there and see what happens and if it meets what you're expecting.
Okay, yeah, I probably needed to look at specific conformance tests because I know that before AMP and BAMP, a lot of tests are written as you have a specific environment where you have 3 namespaces and 3 pods in each, and then we have a truth table sort of thing, and we apply network policy just to see if the truth table holds for that network policy. If yes, then we know the network policy is correctly enforced. Now, what I'm seeing here is that for AMP and BAMP, because we have the more advanced selection mechanism, we have the same labels, same namespace and stuff. Maybe we needed to extend the number of namespaces or pods deployed for us to sort of like correctly test that. because right now you will need to have at least a bunch of namespaces with the same labels and a bunch of namespaces with another sort of set of labels, and do some same label AMPs and figure out that now, yes, the namespace with the same labels are talking to each other, but not across, the label boundary, basically. And that basically is not possible if we just have a static, 3 namespaces, 3 pods in each setup to test with. So for the ANP and BANP test suites to be complete, we probably needed a little bit more pods or namespaces in the infrastructure for us to correctly test the function.
Possibly, or you're running those as different scenarios. So you might scaffold a standard network policy test with that 3 namespaces, 3 pods, and then when you're finished with that, you maybe make some changes to that environment and then do an ANP test within, and then you could do, say, an ANP test on just 3 namespaces.
Yeah,
If you're running
exactly.
them in
Yeah,
parallel, then yeah, you might need more.
Yeah, so this is just a thought. If I don't know if Andrew, you're understanding what I'm saying here.
A little bit. To be honest with you, I haven't put a ton of time into this yet. That's why I'm super thankful that Brian is here helping. So let me think about it some more. I need to go back and watch the Cyclonus Antria live session that y'all did.
Me
I'm
too.
super excited, y'all.
I have a conflict last week, so I think it's the week before, so something. I have a conflict, so I couldn't attend it. But yeah, I definitely need to catch up with that.
I basically sat down with Matt and I asked a bunch of really stupid questions, and I got a bunch of info. It was actually really helpful.
Yeah, there are no stupid questions, by the way. That's awesome. That's what we need. So it's good we're kind of getting started here, because there was just no one doing it. Cool. Any other thing on this issue that we need to talk about today, or do you want to take over splitting into other issues, Brian, or do you want me to do it? I really don't mind. I can do it later. I don't
think I can. Oh no, yeah, I can file issues. Never mind. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, you're a member now.
I can edit this one, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, once you open new ones, feel free to just close this or ask for it to be closed, and I can close it.
Okay. Yeah, I got added to the SIG. I didn't request owner or whatever in here.
Yeah.
Sure what you want me to do there.
Yeah, no worries. Keep on working, and then maybe we'll get some more owners. That's awesome. Cool. Okay. So talked about those issues. I already got an LGTM on this. I was writing another operator for open, or a totally separate operator from scratch, and I realized that our CRDs were being generated incorrectly. They were not being generated at the cluster scope. So I think this is, well, Yang, you just have to give a LGTM and an approve, but it's just basically
I clicked to approve. I don't know if let me look at it again.
It's just proud. You have to give the dash LGTM on that one. But basically all this does for folks. Yeah, it's no worries. All this does for folks who are interested is KubeBuilder looks at our API definitions and generates all the CRDs for them automatically. So all we had to do is add a single KubeBuilder tag to make sure this was cluster scoped. Really easy. But if you haven't looked at KubeBuilder, it's kind of interesting to check out. Cool.
Yeah, there's also a bunch of other tags, like if you can define what the plural or shortened name of the resource is also, I think.
Yep. And a ton of validation stuff, as you can see here, which we do, which is cool. And it's all kind of built in, which is awesome. Ultimately, it gets distilled down into Open API v3, which allows you to express things like this. So, and it's really important with admin network policy because we have some complicated rules. So it's nice to use that.
Did we get ANP and BANP as our little short forms?
It's a great question. I don't think I did. When I was doing this, I was learning it all for the first time. So I probably missed that. Sounds like we need an issue for it. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, Raul.
Fair enough. I can file one.
Yeah.
Strong preference on not
Yeah, me,
use.
I can do that too. But if you want to
Sure.
take it also, I'll be also happy to hand it to you. But there's also some other things that might be really useful in terms of this tags. I remember there's you can define printer columns there, like
Mhm.
when people do kubectl get AMP, you can define what columns are there, like time created. First the priority stuff will be a nice thing to have when it's printed out. So you can actually define those things. I think we needed to look at what are the useful things that should be printed out, and we should put it in there.
Yeah.
And I think, is it going to be the CNI who handles the logic of what gets printed there, or it's and maybe can be built into the API level, I think.
I mean, the only thing that I know KubeBuilder doesn't handle super well is selectors. Like if you try to tell KubeBuilder to print out selectors, like today the network policy kubectl thing is handled by a custom printer.
Right.
Tries to that formats it sensibly. If you use KubeBuilder to dump selectors, it dumps the JSON, which is rather unwieldy. So
Yeah,
maybe
but the priority should be easy, right? Because
Yes.
it's just a .spec.priority. So
yeah, anything super simple, any simple primitives it can handle.
Sweet. I didn't know about that. I'll have to check it out. Feel free, either of y'all, to open an issue for that. That'd be great. Definitely, we probably need a KubeBuilder tag audit, to be honest with you. So cool. Okay, awesome. That's all that's on the agenda. There actually was something that I remembered while we were talking just now. If no one has anything else.
I think I covered the Cyclonus stuff and the other one. So we're
Yep.
going to extend engine. And then once we're happy with engine's extension to support AMP and BMP, then we'll start working on the conformance suites.
Yeah.
And I got really sick last week, so I'm going to spend some serious time on it tomorrow. But
Oh,
that was going to
sweet.
be my
Well,
Friday.
I'm sorry you weren't feeling well. It seems like you're back better.
Feeling better. Yeah.
Cool. So last week I was poking around at some legacy stuff, and I had looked at this a long time ago, but it's basically Cilium's like deep dive into network policy, and it includes like this really long YouTube video about how network policy was created. Dan actually is in it with like Thomas Graff and some other folks, and it led me back to this website. Basically, this I think was a marketing ploy to put forward Cilium's network policy editor, which this site is open source, but the network policy editor is not, which is kind of interesting. But it got me thinking, like, this could be another good set of resources to kind of bring back into the core SIGs community. I wanted to reach out to Thomas Graff and Cilium folks to see like what they would think about moving some of it back and maybe deprecating this website, because the URL is literally networkpolicy.io, and it's kind of a downstream website in an upstream fashion. So just something to think about.
Thinking like to make a open source editor, or just more the site being a homepage for something that's not open source? That's the problem.
Right. I kind of both. I mean, it'd be really great if we talked to the Cilium folks and they said, yeah, here, we'll open source this editor. That could be cool. Because obviously, like, I don't want our website in Kubernetes 6 to be pointing to something that's not open source. Like, there's no way that ever happens. So we couldn't just assume this website as is, but it definitely has some nice videos and resources.
What wasn't it? I mean, the other week, someone else that sent something out of a network policy editor. I cannot remember. I can go back and look through.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no. I'll have to see if I forward it to someone. I just know it was through all the emails, something that I reacted on, but I cannot remember exactly what. I'll dig.
Maybe as a new person on this SIG call, just to chime in on this one, we're building a tool for that automates network policies, and obviously we found this website very quickly. It looked to us very official in some sense, like a very
Right.
normal way that if you want to know more about network policies, which is a part of Kubernetes, you go here. And then we're like, oh, this is a super cool tool. Let's go play with it. And then we realized, yeah, as you said, wait a minute, this is a proprietary tool. And I'm just wondering, maybe really the thing to press upon is that it can't look like both. It's either this or that, and either this thing goes towards a kind of a, this is a Cilium introduction to network policies, or there is a network policy page, which would be awesome because frankly, we find a ton of people very confused by that. And it needs to adhere to the guidelines of these must not be proprietary tools.
Yeah, that's a good. We're stoked to have you, Yuri. Thanks for coming, and that's a really good point. It's that was kind of what I was trying to get across. Like it's confusing. So I'm gonna try to reach out to Liz from Cilium, Liz Rice from Cilium, and Thomas Graff, and see like what they think about how we could like. I don't want to be like shut this website down. I more want to be like, how can we absorb some of these resources into our website? And maybe they're willing to open source the editor now. That'd be even cooler, right? Yeah, so
Put an
I'll
API
add
in
that.
front of Cyclonus.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of, I'm thinking we're almost there with Cyclonus, like does a lot of the logic work. Who's good at React?
Put an API in front of the simulator and pretty much have what
Yeah.
you need.
100%. So I'll add this to my list. However, the first thing I want to do before I reach out to that is I still have the issue up to kind of make our website more generic, right? We want to be describing all of Kubernetes policy APIs, not just the admin network policy API. And I've had an outstanding issue to do that. I haven't been able to get to it. So if folks are listening to this call and want to tackle it, please go do it.
I was mixing it up with Monocle, whatever it's called.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Is there anything else folks want to talk about today? Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Just a gentle reminder to,
Review your PR.
Yeah.
It's literally been on my short list a couple weeks. I'm grinding towards the end of Q4 and trying to get my downstream commitments done before then. So I am very sorry, Ying. I promise I will do it.
No problem at all. I mean, I'm also busy with a lot of other things recently, but I think we have released a cutoff by December the 16th. So in between 16th and Christmas, I do feel like there's going to be a ton of free time for me. So I will definitely, spend more time looking at AMP related stuff, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll put a link to that PR here in a second for folks who want to review it. For a kind of a backstory, the KEP originally merged a long time ago. Then we worked on the API and got it merged. And now Yang has gone back and has a PR to update the KEP with like what actually merged in the API design side of things, because it changed a little bit. So it's good. It's just good practice to keep that KEP updated. And it's even weirder for us because we don't adhere to Kubernetes release guidelines. Like we're just a CRD. But it's definitely a good practice to keep that updated. And speaking of releases, that's something, as we start getting implementations done for AMP, like we're going to have to start thinking about some release infrastructure for the API itself. And hopefully I can make an issue for that.
Can I raise one other thing that may seem, because it is very much a newbie question, but since I've got the experts here.
No worries, go for it, Yuri.
So, in the rolling out of this tool, which by the way is open source, we're thinking to ourselves, network policies are an interesting thing because, as you say, they're a CRD, they're an object that exists. Whether or not anybody pays attention to it, you have a network policy, but you don't know that anybody's enforcing it. Obviously, there's got to be a CNI that supports network policies, that enforces it, and so on. Is there, or has there been some thought towards implementing some way of the cluster knowing that somebody's actually enforcing network policies?
So first,
you know that.
First thing, network policy itself isn't a CRD. It's a core API. The admin network policy we've been talking about a lot in this meeting, it is a CRD. So it's we did that just so that we could iterate a little bit faster. It's a good question. There is a status field now in network policy. Now the issue with that is I don't think any CNI has implemented it yet. Maybe Ricardo might know better.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to share a little bit my thought here. If I understand this question correctly, or you probably are talking about something in the lines of, I'm probably a app developer, right? So I wanted to know that if I wanted to talk to some other namespaces, is there going to be network policy blocking that or restricting me to do that? Is that what your question is more about?
It's certainly one of the use cases, right? So we're creating a tool that automatically creates network policies, yes, based upon sort of client intents. But our big thing is that we can say, great, this network policy was created, and if it were enforced, the following would be allowed and the following would not be allowed, but we don't know if it's being enforced by anything.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's more of a status thing. Yes.
Right. And I linked the KEP to that.
Great.
I think that'd be good to check out. I don't know what CNI are using, but you could ask them to possibly implement this. And maybe we need to think about, I don't know what status defaults to. It defaults to nothing, like an empty list of conditions. But maybe someday in upstream, we need to have the logic that says, unless the implementation's explicitly right, like implemented, then it defaults to unimplemented or something. I don't know how that would work, but
and then if we someday had a control plane, right, that would update to something, then it would be possible for the system itself to conclude if the backends that are implemented actually fulfills something like Cyclonus test or so on, and because then you could let the platform test itself and see if the implementations fulfill. But I mean, we're far from there.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're far from there. I agree with you, but it's a good point. It's a good question, and it's interesting that
saying that you implement something and that you really do it is not always the same.
Thinking like a CNI would import a Cyclonus Go package and then build that into their verification process on install. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And then with multi-network and multi-CNI, I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. But for the users, actually, it probably also gonna be a little bit weird because once you install a CNI to verify that using Cyclonus, people will probably see a bunch of namespaces and pods just came up, and then running some tests under the hood, people are probably gonna figure out on what's going on. So that's also something to think about. Unless I would say that it's probably better if people explicitly say that, hey, I've installed a CNI, I want to do like a sanity run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or you're just installing a CNI that's on a stable branch of that CNI, which means it's past conformance at that point.
Yeah. For our purposes, from what we heard from users, it's good enough if the thing kind of self-reports. It's just that right now, the hack we would have to do is we'd have to install a couple of pods, create a network policy, test that it's actually enforced, and delete those pods. Extremely hacky.
Yeah.
Something there.
There's also there was another issue, and I can't find it right now. I will go find it. There was a kind of proposal within an issue to add an enforcing flag to network policy. So that could be used as more of an explicit same way, right? You could just make a network policy with enforcing set to false.
Very cool.
but I will find that and link it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no, good to have you, Ori. And it's interesting. I've seen a lot of folks kind of doing in the same thing y'all are trying to do, because in my opinion, it shows that network policy is hard to explicitly illustrate a lot of intents. So you always end up having a shim that is creating network policy, right? Or an engine.
Yeah.
So we're hoping if you get some time, definitely check out our admin network policy and let us know if we missed anything, because we're still early in the cycle and we're hoping that it's a little bit easier to use straight natively.
Yeah, and that was a major driver for me to join here, because I wanted to learn more about this. I think there's sort of, sort of what the admins are trying to do in general, which is kind of enforce some governance and so on. And then there's what the app developers are trying to do, which is just to make the right things work. And like, how do those meet, right? Do we have to monitor for drift, or is there some official way to say, this is where the intent of the developer meets the governance of the admin?
Yeah, that sounds like the admin network policy API. So definitely go check it out.
Will do. Thank you.
There's a lot of cool things that could be done. One is like, let's say there was a central control system that calculated everything. And you can do a lot of cool things with things like SRv6 and metadata. So you could actually have something that pretends to be a pod sending traffic through and see if it gets caught, right? You will tell the firewall on the other side, never forward this to the actual pod,
right.
Just return the result.
Right.
Was this forwarded or not? So there's a lot of cool toolkits that can be made to check that this actually works in reality for a given CNI. That's at least where we're going. So we will be able to calculate the full graph and say what can talk to what, and then run it and compare that to Cyclonus results, and also actually test an all combination to see if it fulfills the requirements by having actual traffic being sent to any of the pods, but telling the connection tracker on the source to not forward up to the pod. Just send back the result.
So Per, what when you say we are doing
My company, what I sort of work with, that's a we, and parts of it. My dream and goal is to be able to give away an open source, a complete control plane that eats up the policies and can also be made very easily to handle more policy types, and then delivers, call it a logical firewall API, where you would plug in backends to, and then you do your implementation of your firewall the way you want it. But Kubernetes should have something, call it the other end of Cyclonus, one implementation, not similar implementation, that calculates if things can communicate.
Yes, awesome. I'll ping you and get more information directly. Maybe you're on Slack, I would assume.
Yeah, he is. I think he had to take a call.
Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, folks. If there's nothing else, going once, going twice. Sold. Good meeting today. Pretty constructive. Thanks for the time and thanks for coming. I hope you all have a really good rest of the week. And well, I think we'll see you next time. I got to look at what date the next meeting falls on, because if it's in the Christmas holiday, we might cancel.
19th.
So just be aware.
It should be on the 19th, right? So that's before Christmas.
Yeah, so we'll probably have that meeting. Might just be quiet. Cool. Okay, thanks y'all. Have a good day.